Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favourite horror sequels of all time. Yeah, this was a fun list, fun idea that I thought I'd been wanting to do for a while. I'm not a massive horror person, but I think I've just seen it in enough horror movies to compile this type of list, as it were. But yeah, there was just a huge array of movies to choose from. But yeah, before I get into it, I want to give a shout out to a couple of honourable mentions that just didn't quite make the list for me. So the first one I want to give a shout out to is Conjuring Two. I think that's a fantastic follow up to the first movie. Saw 2, not as good as the first in my opinion, but still a pretty competent movie that I do enjoy. Maniac Cop 2, I just love the first one far too much, but the sequel is pretty good as well. Poltergeist 2 is again another horror movie I enjoy, not as good as the first in my opinion. Return of the Living Dead Part 2 is another sort of silly zombie movie that I really enjoy. Exorcist 3, I think is sort of an apology letter for the second movie, which was borderline unwatchable in my opinion. But the third movie has one of the best jump scares ever. Scream 2 by Wes Craven, I think is a pretty solid follow-up. Critters 2 is really fun. I enjoy those first two Critter movies, but the sequel is a lot of fun. It's a lot more colourful than the first in my opinion, but I do like both movies. And House 2 and 3, not the best movies, but there's a lot of innocent fun there to be had. They're corny and cheesy, but they're just super likeable in my opinion. But yeah, that being said, gonna kick it off with number 10. But before I do that, I just want to say I don't think that these movies in particular are better than the original movie that that kickstarted the franchise that these movies are from. I've tried to keep this list as well to one entry per franchise. But yeah, like I said, I'm not saying that these movies are better than the original movie. These are just 10 movies from their franchises that aren't the first movie that I just really enjoy and have a good time with. But yeah, we're all going to have different lists and different opinions. But yeah, this is just mine. So, kicking it off with number 10 for me is Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. I had heard nothing but horrible things about the Candyman sequels. I've heard the third one is god awful. I think that's Day of the Dead. I haven't seen that one, but I went into this one after seeing the remake, and my expectations were on the floor for this movie, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with it. And yeah, I just overall had a good fun time with it. It's not nowhere near the caliber of the first movie, but for me, I just really like seeing sort of where Candyman came from, and we get a lot more of it in this movie. It was just the ending in particular I just thought was great. It had a really solid third act in my opinion, and I just really enjoyed it. So yeah, that is Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. So coming in at number 9 for me is Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Yeah, the first movie has got some really good creepy solid elements to it, that I really enjoyed. Some great practical effects, and what I liked about this movie was it went more creative with its sort of practical effects, as it were, and I was just blown away by this world. It's absolutely insane compared to the first movie. It just really takes this different step in direction as to where the first movie was going, and I just loved it for it. I just thought, like I said, I can't praise the practical effects in this movie enough. I was just sort of blown away by how creative and imaginative it was going, and yeah, I just overall had a good time with it. By no means a perfect movie, but yeah, I just my glass was half full when I was watching it. So yeah, that is Hellbound Hellraiser 2 coming in at number 9. So coming in at number 8 for me is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. This was the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie I ever saw. I think it was either this or the remake. This was one of those movies that was on TV when I was a kid. I think it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I started to watch it, and I was just hooked. I couldn't turn the television off. I was just blown away, creeped out, totally drawn into this movie, and having at the time not seen the first one. So I was really, really intrigued to see what the first movie was like. I'd heard so many incredible things about it, and the first movie could not have been any different to this movie. The first movie just creates such brilliant atmosphere, but this one for me was just so much fun, so much fun. I'll always have that nostalgia for it. It was one of those movies that you shouldn't be watching as a kid that's on TV quite late. So yeah, coming in at number 8, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So coming in at number 7 for me is Child's Play 2. I love the first movie. I think the first movie is the best of the franchise. Now, a lot of people have a lot of love for this one, and I can completely understand why. I think what really is the selling point to this movie is its setting, particularly in the third act. The factory is just so much fun. That sequence, it is just brilliant. One of the the best characters in Chucky to have some of the best one-liners as well in this movie. It's just wonderful. The whole kick your teeth in line. It's so funny. It's been a really, really long time since I've seen this movie because I just love the first one so much. I know the third one isn't considered the best as well, but I do have a good time with that movie. But yeah, Child's Play 2 again is just it's a solid follow up considering how that first movie ends. It's quite creative how they bring Chucky back. But yeah, I do have a good time with it nevertheless. So yeah, that is Child's Play 2. So coming in at number 6 for me is actually a movie that is the 6th entry into the franchise, and that is Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Now, I'm a big fan of this franchise. I really, really do love it. You could argue that all the movies are pretty much the same. But yeah, number 6 for me had that fun factor about it that I just loved. The movie is very, very self-aware and is very sort of comedic at times. And on rewatch, it was just so much fun. An absolute blast with it. Some of the movies in the franchise are absolute garbage, particularly the 9th one. But take the good ones when you can. And number 6 is certainly that. It was so much fun. So much fun. Just had an absolute blast with Jason Lives. It was just so creative. All the kills are there. The characters you give a shit about. It's just really, really wonderful stuff. So, yeah. Friday the 13th, Part 6 coming in at number 6. So coming in at number 5 for me is a sequel to a John Carpenter film, and that is Halloween 2. This was one of the last Halloween movies that I saw, and the third one was actually the first movie I'd ever seen from that franchise, and I love Halloween 3, but that movie sort of does not take place in the universe of the first two movies, and I love the first movie growing up. Seeing it finally when I was a kid just blew me away how fantastic that movie was. And given how that movie ends, if you want more, Halloween 2 gives you that completely. It really, really does give you closure to that first movie. You can watch the two movies back to back, which I do every Halloween, and it really does have a satisfying ending. To me, the whole Michael Myers story could have ended with this movie. It's just really, really wonderful, and I just have an absolute blast with it. So yeah, that is Halloween 2. So coming up next to me at number 4 is a movie directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, and it is Fright Night Part 2. This is the Spanish release. Sadly, we don't have a UK release of this movie, which is criminal in my opinion. I just think this movie is really good. Again, not as good as the first movie in my opinion. I just love that first movie so much. It's a horror and vampire masterpiece in my opinion. But this again is a good solid follow-up. it sort of switches the premise, in my opinion. The first movie, Charlie is trying to convince everyone this vampire exists and lives next door to him, and Peter Vincent won't believe him. In this one, it's the other way around. Peter Vincent's trying to convince Charlie that there's a vampire, and it's just great. It's sad that they're the only two actors to reprise their roles in this movie, but it really, really still is wonderful. And the vampire in this movie does have a connection to the vampire in the first movie, but I won't say why because it's a bit of a spoiler. But if you've not seen this movie, do check it out. It really, really is wonderful. So yeah, that is Fright Night Part 2. So coming in at number 3 for me is Evil Dead 2. Pretty similar to why I like Hellraiser 2. Evil Dead 2 just takes that next level in creativity, I think, from the first movie. The first movie is still pretty creative, but I think Evil Dead 2 just nails what that first movie didn't get right. And it's sort of like a retry at Evil Dead that Sam Raimi was trying to do, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people sort of see the second Evil Dead as, his like a remake to the first movie. But yeah, it is so much fun. The sound effects in the movie are just absolutely creepy as hell. The blood and gore effects are over the top and in your face, and it's absolutely wonderful. I wouldn't change a thing about it. You know, Sam Raimi's direction is brilliant, and of course Bruce Campbell's performance is second to none. And yeah, I just absolutely love Evil Dead 2. I just think it's fantastic. I can't really say any more about it that hasn't already been said. So yeah, that is coming in at number 3, Evil Dead 2. So coming in at number 2 for me is a movie that I was going to consider leaving off this list, and I'll tell you why. So coming in at number 2 for me is George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. I was going to leave this off this list because, for me, although this is the second movie in the franchise, it doesn't follow on from the first movie in any sort of way, apart from the apocalypse zombie setting. But it certainly is. It's too good of a movie in its own right to leave off this list. It's one of the best, if not the best, zombie movie ever made, and certainly one of the best horror movies ever made. It's just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I think what makes this movie for me is the 4 leads in this movie. You just absolutely give a shit about them, and you want them to survive, as it were, and see out this apocalypse. But yeah, the effects in it are not to Tom Savini's par, as it were. I think anything he got wrong in this movie, he perfected with Day of the Dead. But for me, this just has a stronger story. And yeah, I just think it's fantastic. It's one of those movies that I saw way too young. If anyone knows anything about me, I just saw this movie way too young, and it really, really had an effect on me. Even to this day, I have trouble watching it. I have to sort of gear myself up and prepare myself mentally to sit down and watch this. But yeah, it's a superb movie. It really, really is. I can't say anything else about it that hasn't already been said. So that is my number 2 pick, Dawn of the Dead. So coming in at number 1 for me is a movie I adore. I just adore this movie, and I think a lot of people in the horror community would agree. Some people do consider this to be the best entry in its franchise, and I can completely understand why, and I'm so lucky that I clinged on to my VHS of this. My Blu-ray that I have, the artwork on it is atrocious because it's part of a box set. But yeah, my number 1 pick is Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, and again, so happy that I clinged onto the VHS because the artwork on this is just stellar. I just remember seeing that in Blockbusters as a kid. The first 3 movies, the artwork on them just blew me away when I was in Blockbusters, and yeah, again, another movie as well that I saw on TV for the first time, way too young, back in the day when Channel 5 was playing all of these awesome horror movies. Late at night after school, it just blew me away, these movies, these plethora of movies that Channel 5 was playing from the 80s. And yeah, again, this is a great follow-up to the first movie. I think the second movie they were trying something different and didn't quite work, although I still enjoy that movie. But yeah, the third movie, it really gets creative with its effects, and not only that, but with its characters as well. You give a shit about these characters, these kids that are in this sort of hospital and the treatment that they're getting, and you just really give a shit about them. And some of the deaths in it are just really horrible, particularly Phillips. That really, I feel that death in my arms and legs whenever I watch it. It just goes right through me. But yeah, it's just a superb movie. Just absolutely love it. It's awesome. I can't say much more about it than that. It's just so much fun. If you're looking for a good time on a horror movie, and I'd say as well, if you've never seen any of the Elm Street movies, this is probably a really good place to start. You know, it really does sort of gear you up and set you up for this world. And yeah, I just think it's a fantastic horror movie. My favourite horror sequel of all time. So coming in at number 1 is Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. So yeah, those are my top 10 favourite horror sequels of all time, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know some of your favourite horror sequels down below in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. Bye for now.